I was sitting on top of the boulder and I had just taken a shot at Mike, who was standing in front of the ATM. I forgot to mention during the last episode that he had a mask on when he got out of the car. I could tell it was him though, by his suit and body shape. I took a shot at him and he fell into the machine. I proceeded to shoot the back tires on his Chrysler 300 to trap him. He was now a sitting duck with nowhere to run. He then went on to the passenger side of the car and dove through the window. I didn't know what he was doing. He obviously knew that this car was fucked up with the back two tires gone. He put it into reverse with his back rims grinding against the pavement. Then the car flipped around with his headlights pointing towards me. He gunned the car across the road and started hauling dick towards me. I shot a few times at the front windshield, but the bullets seemed to not go through. I now figured that he had some sort of light bulletproof glass or something of the sort. The car had now hit the desert and still accelerating. About 100 yards from the boulder I was perched on, I saw the driver's side open and him bail out. I shot once at him but missed. As soon as I took the shot, I jumped off the boulder right by my ATV. About 2 or 3 seconds after I did, I heard a huge explosion and saw a gigantic flash of light envelop the dark desert. I started up the ATV and slung the P90 over my shoulder. As I rounded the boulder, I saw Mike's car engulfed in flames. I flew past it searching for him with my 9mm out. He was nowhere in sight. I gunned it to the bank and ran up to the ATM he was just at. The weird electronic device with wires hanging out of it was still stuck in it. I grabbed it and took off. I guess he forgot it in all the commotion. I took off towards my car, still trying to look for Mike in the desert as I passed by it. Again, he was nowhere to be seen. I took off my ski mask and put it in my pockets as I was speeding down the street. I was pissed that I had let him get away. It wasn't gonna be easy to get another chance like the one I just had. As I arrived at my car, I heard sirens in the distance. I knew I couldn't just leave the ATV out in the open for the cops to find, so I found some bushes on the edge of the park. I took some wet wipes I had in my backpack and wiped off the handlebars and a few other spots where I thought my prints would be. I ran as quickly as I could after hiding the ATV and got into my car. I was driving away and I could hear more and more sirens in the distance. I hauled ass out of that area in order to not be linked with what had just happened. It was about a half an hour later and I finally arrived back at my hotel. Exhausted and angry that I had missed my chance, I pulled the device that I had just gotten out of my pocket and started doing some research. I didn't find much on it on the outer web, but on the darknet I found some similar devices. They were apparently for hacking into ATMs and pulling money out of people's accounts. I needed to figure out what he was doing with this thing, so I drove to a nearby coffee shop and used their Wi-Fi. I checked my bank account and saw several $1,000s missing from my account. All the transactions were in the $1,000 increments, one day after another. It blew my mind. They were taking money slowly away from my account in order to bankrupt me to slow me down. This just pissed me off more than anything. You weren't playing this game very fairly, Mike. Whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. I went back to my hotel and crashed. When I awoke, it was already daytime, around 10 a.m. I finally got a good night's rest. God knows I needed it. I sat up in the bed thinking, technically, Mike was it now. And I figured he was a bit pissed that I had caught him by surprise. Oh, and on top of that, he destroyed his car to get away from me. And he probably had to walk for hours and hours to get back at his hotel, or maybe he called a taxi. It made me smile that I had put him through all that. He really went through a lot to get out of that situation. I mean shit, his goddamn car was rigged with fucking explosives just in case he was put in a situation like that. It dawned on me that I wouldn't know the vehicle he was in now, which would make my life that much harder. He could be in any vehicle at any time, which sucked. I just sat on the edge of my bed thinking about all this. And there was a knock on the door. My adrenaline was pumping again. I heard a keycard get put into the slot and the door handle giggled a bit before opening. I grabbed my Glock and chambered around and dove beside my bed. The door was caught by the chain lock. I look up to see a little Mexican housekeeper looking at me. I put the gun behind my back and stood up. "Housekeeping?" she said while looking at me. "No, thank you. Come back later," I said to her. She shut the door and I hear her walking away. I had a huge relief and unchambered the round. Fuck, lady, you could have been shot. Weren't they supposed to say housekeeping before they opened the door? I sat back down on the bed and slid my hands over my forehead and through my hair. I knew my body was having a hard time with all this shit going down. I got up and took another shower. I stayed in that night and ordered takeout. The next day, I switched motels and chilled out. I took another few days to chill out and recuperate from everything that had happened. On the third day in this new hotel, I knew I needed to get to the end of this game. After a few hours of pacing my room and not coming up with a single fucking idea and stressed as hell because I couldn't come up with anything, I decided I'd go down to the strip and play a little poker to get my mind off everything. I went down to the Flamingo Hotel and started to play a little bit. After a few hours of playing and winning a good amount, I decided it was time to pack it up and quit while I was ahead. I cashed out my chips and headed out to walk the strip for a bit. It was so overcrowded and crawling with cops, I knew even Mike wasn't gonna take the chance of trying to shoot me here. As I was walking, I noticed the Bellagio fountains started up. I stood across the street admiring them, and it took my mind off everything that was going on for a brief moment. As soon as my mind got sidetracked with the beauty of the jets dancing around one another, I saw something that shocked me to my very core. There was Mike, walking in between a thick crowd of onlookers watching the fountains. Holy fucking shit. Out of all the people in this whole fucking city, there's the one person that I was looking for right in front of me. He hadn't noticed me at all, so I started trailing behind him on the other side of the street. I lowered my baseball cap and kept watching him, always a few feet behind so he wouldn't see me. He eventually made his way to that Aria hotel and walked in. I waited about a minute and walked in. Just as I had, I saw him make his way to the room elevators. No fucking way. I knew where he was staying. It was a 1 in a million, but something out there gave me a break and put him right in front of me. I walked up to the lobby receptionist and gave her some bullshit story about how me and my buddy got separated and I needed his room number to check if he was there. She asked about his first and last name and I gave it to her. She typed some things into her computer and gave me a room number. I couldn't have gotten more lucky. The more I thought about it, the more sense it made. If I were him, I'd want to stay in one of the most crowded hotels in Vegas, which makes getting found a lot harder. I thanked her for the information and took off. I made my way back to my car and drove back to my motel. I got in and took out one of my spare envelopes. I put the ATM hacker gizmo in it and a note that said, Red Rock Canyon, 6 p.m., 2 days from now. Take the scenic loop to White Mountain Road and turn right. Keep driving until the road turns to dirt and keep going some more. You'll see an older car parked on the side of the road. I'll be waiting. You're it. I ran back to the area hotel with the envelope and room number in hand. I took the elevator up to his room. I wrote Mike on the front of it and took out some tape that I had, stuck 2 pieces to the envelope and stuck it to his door as fast as I could without making any noise. Hopefully no one would take it. This was my only chance to finally finish all of this. I ran back to the casino floor and got to my car. As soon as I got back to my room, I started to prepare. I took out my .50 caliber and started to clean it from barrel to butt. I couldn't fuck this up like the last time. I started to put the gun back together, and there it was again. That big old smile had come back to my face.